Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we step into a realm of gilded cages and desperate measures, where a queen's obsession with beauty led to a legend so bizarre you'll be checking your closet for midnight visitors. Tonight, we're not just talking about history, we're stepping into the cold, stone corridors of a 16th century palace, where the tapestries are thick with secrets and the air is heavy with intrigue. Imagine, if you will, the flickering candlelight casting long, dancing shadows on the walls as you tiptoe past sleeping guards, your breath misting in the chill. You're small, maybe 8 years old, with big eyes and a tiny heart that beats with a quiet terror. This isn't a fairy tale. This is a gilded prison. This is the life of a young Catherine de' Medici. You probably think you know the dark side of a royal life, all the beheadings and betrayals, but I promise you, you won't survive the psychological horror of this story. We're going deeper. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And as you're settling in, why not drop your location and local time in the comments? It's always fun to see where our little history-loving community is tuning in from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're a child, and the world is a series of cold, polished surfaces. You are Catherine, born into the powerful but ultimately ill-fated Medici dynasty of Florence. Your birth, in 1519, was celebrated with all the fanfare due a scion of one of Europe's wealthiest banking families, yet it was a celebration tainted by tragedy. Within weeks, your mother, Madeleine de la Tour d'Auvergne, died. Shortly after, your father, Lorenzo II de' Medici, followed her to the grave, leaving you a tiny, powerless orphan in a world where power was everything. You are a jewel without a setting, a pawn on a chessboard where the grandmasters play for keeps, and your family, the Medici, were masters of the game. You don't have a mother's lullabies or a father's gentle embrace. You have tutors, yes, but their lessons are not about childish rhymes or stories. They're about geography and Latin and the complex, brutal politics of the Italian city-states. Your home, the Medici Palace, is a masterpiece of Renaissance art and architecture, but to you it's a fortress. You're a prize, a living commodity, and the powerful forces that swirl around you are hungry. The sack of Rome in 1527 by the Holy Roman Emperor's troops throws all of Italy into chaos, and your family's hold on Florence is shaken. You, a symbol of their rule, are caught in the crossfire. You are shuffled from one convent to another, a political hostage, a living bargaining chip. You're a girl who knows the feel of a cold stone floor beneath your knees, not from prayer, but from fear. This is a mainstream historical fact. The young Catherine de' Medici was indeed a political pawn during the chaos of the Italian wars. She was held as a hostage by Republican factions in Florence after the fall of the Medici. Her life was in genuine danger. There were even radical proposals to sell her into prostitution or kill her. So, when you later see the fierce, formidable queen she becomes, remember that she was forged in the fire of this early trauma. She learned from the ground up that the world was a dangerous place, and that she would have to fight for her survival. Now, here's a quirky tidbit you probably won't find in the history books unless you dig a little. During her time as a hostage, Catherine was supposedly dressed as a nun by her captors, a strange and cruel form of mockery aimed at her uncle, Pope Clement VII. Imagine this little girl forced to wear the robes of a holy order, all while the men who held her argued her fate. It's a detail that adds a layer of quiet, unsettling cruelty to her already harrowing childhood. It speaks to the psychological warfare that was waged around her, a constant reminder that her life was not her own. Historians still argue whether this detail is fully accurate, or if it's a later embellishment, but it certainly paints a vivid picture of the sheer indignity and terror of her situation. It helps explain why her later years were marked by a ruthless practicality. You are rescued from this ordeal, but only to be handed over to a new master, the Pope himself, your uncle. You're not a niece to be cherished, but a strategic asset. You are 14 years old, an age when most girls are thinking of dresses and dances, and you are being prepared for one of the most significant political marriages of the century. Your name is being whispered in the courts of Europe, attached to the second son of the French king, Henri, Duke of Orléans. It is not a love match. It is a calculated alliance between the French monarchy and the Medici, brokered by a pope desperate to reassert his family's influence. You are groomed for this role with the kind of single-minded focus that leaves no room for anything but duty. You are taught French, not to converse with friends, but to navigate the treacherous waters of the French court. You are taught etiquette, not for grace, but for survival. You are taught to be silent, to observe, and to wait. Your life is not about happiness, but about utility. You are a vessel, a delivery system for political capital, and most importantly for a son. The future of a dynasty, the very balance of power in Europe, rests on your slender shoulders, and you know, deep in the pit of your stomach, that if you fail, you will be discarded. You'll be sent back to Florence in disgrace, or worse, banished to a convent for good. The pressure is immense, a silent weight that you carry with you every single day. You are an orphaned princess, a political pawn, a symbol of power you do not possess. You learn to hide your true feelings behind a mask of demure obedience. You learn to listen more than you speak. You learn that in the high-stakes game of royal politics, your only true allies are your wits and your will to survive. You have been shaped by loss and danger, and the girl who will one day be known as the Serpent Queen is already stirring beneath the surface. You will soon embark on a journey that will change your destiny forever. A journey to a new country and a new court, where the games are even more deadly, and where the prize you are meant to deliver is more elusive than you can possibly imagine. The air is heavy with the scent of dried lavender and the faint coppery tang of ambition. You are ready to leave behind the cobbled streets of Florence and step into the gilded Hall of France, but you have no idea what awaits you there. The journey has only just begun. You stand on the deck of a ship, the salt spray misting your face, and you feel the rhythmic rise and fall of the Mediterranean Sea beneath your feet. It's October of 1533, and you're 14 years old. This isn't a grand adventure, it's a forced march to destiny. The wind whips at the rich silks of your gown, and you shiver, but not from the cold. The weight of your impending marriage hangs over you like a shroud. You're en route to Marseille, a city of sun-bleached stone and bustling harbours, where you will meet a man you've never laid eyes on, a man who will become your husband, and a king you will one day serve as queen. You've been prepared for this moment for years. The lessons in Latin and etiquette were not just academic exercises. They were the tools of your trade, the Polish on the prize. Your tutors, under the careful direction of your uncle, Pope Clement VII, have moulded you into a perfect diplomatic asset. They've taught you to be reserved, to be demure, to be everything a good Renaissance bride should be. You've been trained to smile with your eyes but never your mouth, to listen more than you speak, and to project an aura of quiet strength. You're not a human being with hopes and fears. You are a living, breathing treaty, a human bridge between two powerful houses. The journey itself is an extravagant affair. You're not just travelling, you're parading your family's immense wealth and power. The fleet of ships is laden with your dowry, a staggering amount of riches that includes chests of gold, bolts of silk, jewels of every kind, and even a host of Florentine servants and artists. It's a grand display, a clear message to the French court that the Medici are not to be trifled with. But for you, it feels less like a celebration and more like a transaction. You are the main item on the manifest, and your value is being loudly and publicly advertised. It is a lonely experience, surrounded by all this opulence, yet utterly isolated in your own thoughts. A mainstream historical fact of this journey is that the Pope himself, your uncle, accompanied you to Marseille. Pope Clement VII's presence was a clear signal of the political importance of this union. He was not just sending off his niece, he was solidifying an alliance with King Francis I of France, a bulwark against the formidable power of the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V. The two leaders would meet, a rare and momentous occasion, to finalise the marriage contract and to celebrate what they hoped would be a new era of cooperation. Imagine the scene, the head of the Catholic Church, a towering political figure in his own right, personally overseeing your betrothal. It speaks to how high the stakes were. You arrive in the bustling port of Marseille, and the city is a blur of colour and noise. The air is thick with the scent of spices and the murmur of 1,000 voices. The celebrations are magnificent, a series of feasts, dances and tournaments designed to impress. You are introduced to your future husband, Henri, the Duke of Orléans. He is a year older than you, a lanky boy with a sombre expression and a reputation for being quiet and somewhat sullen. He seems unenthusiastic. You notice his gaze doesn't linger on you. It drifts, as if searching for something else. He doesn't say much, and his silence is more telling than any words could be. The Pope performs the wedding ceremony, a lavish affair held in the Church of Saint-Jean-Baptiste. The marriage contract is signed, the vows are exchanged, and you are officially the Dauphin of France, though you are not yet the Dauphiness, as Henri is the second son. Here's a quirky tidbit about your wedding night, a moment historians still debate the true nature of. The marriage was reportedly consummated in a rather public fashion. King Francis I, your new father-in-law, was so eager for an heir and so pleased with the alliance that he allegedly oversaw the consummation of the marriage himself, even making bawdy jokes to ensure the union was properly sealed. While it's hard to verify the full extent of this story, the fact that such a tale exists speaks volumes about the complete lack of privacy and the intensely political nature of every aspect of your life. Imagine the pressure, the sheer humiliation, of having your most intimate moment become a spectator sport for a king and his court. It's not romantic, it's a grotesque public duty. The ceremony is over, the ink is dry on the contract, and you are now a part of the French court. You're given a grand household, a host of French ladies-in-waiting, and a new title. You are no longer just a Medici, you are a Princess of France. But the transition is not seamless. The French court, with its intricate web of alliances and feuds, is a labyrinth you have yet to navigate. You feel the cold, appraising eyes on you as you walk the gilded halls of the Louvre. They whisper about your Italian heritage, about your merchant background. They call you the shopkeeper's daughter. They mock your Italian accent, your Florentine style of dress, and your quiet demeanour. You're not one of them, and they let you know it at every turn. You realise that your dowry, while impressive, is also a source of resentment. They see it as a desperate attempt by the Medici to buy their way into a more powerful family. And even worse, your uncle, the Pope who orchestrated this entire affair, dies less than a year after the wedding. This is a crucial historical fact. Pope Clement VII's death in 1534 leaves you isolated and vulnerable. Your political value plummets. Your dowry, which was meant to be a permanent financial link between France and the Papal States, suddenly feels like a one-time payment. The French court, no longer needing to placate a powerful pope, begins to treat you with even more disdain. You're a wife without her patron, a princess without a protector. Historians still argue whether King Francis I's initial warmth towards you was genuine or simply a performance for your uncle. His quick shift in attitude after the Pope's death, growing colder and more distant, suggests that you were always just a means to an end. It reinforces the idea that in this world, love and affection are a currency, and you've just lost your main source of income. You're now truly on your own, an island in a sea of sharks. The days stretch into a monotonous routine of courtly duties and silent observation. You watch your husband, Henri, and you see his heart is not with you. He is polite, yes, but he is absent. His mind and his attention are elsewhere, and you know with a dawning and painful clarity exactly where. He is devoted to a woman who is not you. This is the cruelest joke of all. You were groomed to be the perfect bride, the vessel for the future of a dynasty, and yet the man who is meant to complete this equation is already in love with someone else. You see her from a distance, a woman of dazzling beauty and an unassailable confidence. She's older than you, tall and elegant, and she commands the king's respect and your husband's devotion. Her name is Diane de Poitiers. You've been trained to be a political wife, to be pragmatic and accepting, but the sight of their easy intimacy, their shared glances and quiet conversations is a knife twist. You have no recourse, no one to confide in. The game has already begun, and you are starting on the back foot. You're a child in a woman's body, trapped in a loveless marriage, and the golden cage you now inhabit feels much colder and smaller than you ever could have imagined. Your journey to the throne, which began with such fanfare and promise, has already hit its first and most painful obstacle. You're now in France, and the air here is different. It's not just the crisp cold of a northern European winter. It's a palpable tension, a silent hum of judgment that follows you through the marble halls of the Château de Chambord. This is one of King Francis I's many palaces, a masterpiece of Renaissance architecture with its soaring spires and intricate double helix staircase, and you are just another piece of the furniture. The opulent surroundings do nothing to soothe the persistent ache of loneliness you carry with you. You were a valuable commodity in Florence, but here you feel like damaged goods, a purchase whose warranty expired the moment your uncle, the Pope, took his last breath. Your days are a monotonous cycle of public display and private solitude. You attend mass, you sew with the ladies of the court, you listen to music, but you are never truly present. Your role is to be a silent spectator, to smile at the right moments, and to fade into the background at all others. You are not a participant in the court's gossip or its intrigues. You are the subject of them. You hear the whispers in the kitchens and the titters behind fans about your plain looks, your foreign accent, your Medici money. You've been placed on a pedestal, yes, but only so that everyone can get a better look at your flaws. The French court is a far cry from the artistic and intellectual vibrancy of Florence. It is a place of brutal power plays, where reputation is a weapon and a slight can lead to your downfall. You quickly learn to read the room, to interpret the subtle shifts in posture and the fleeting expressions on people's faces. Your survival depends on it. You watch your new family, King Francis I, a man of grand appetites and an even grander ego. His wife, Queen Eleanor, a quiet, pious woman who seems as isolated as you are. And your husband, Henry, who remains a distant, almost spectral presence in your life. A mainstream historical fact that colours this period of your life is the sheer grandeur and extravagance of the French court under Francis I. He was a patron of the arts, a builder of magnificent chateaux, and a man who believed in the power of spectacle. His court was a moving city, shifting from one palace to another, a procession of thousands of people, from nobles to servants to artists and scholars. You are part of this massive, unwieldy caravan. The sheer logistical nightmare of it all, the packing and unpacking, the constant travel, the strain on local resources would be a modern marvel. For you, it is simply your reality, a chaotic backdrop to your silent struggle. You watch Henri, and you see that his life is entirely defined by his relationship with two people, his father, the king, and his mistress, Diane de Poitiers. The king's opinion is everything to Henri. He lives to earn his father's approval, and he often fails. King Francis favours his elder son, the Dauphin Francis, who is charming, athletic, and everything Henri is not. You see your husband's resentment and insecurity, and you realise that your marriage to him is a reflection of his own powerlessness. He is not the king, and he may never be. You are his wife, but you are not his equal. You are a reminder of a political arrangement he had no say in, and your presence seems to deepen his melancholy. And then there is Diane. You see her from a distance, a woman who is almost 20 years older than Henri, yet who possesses a timeless beauty and an effortless command. She is not a queen, but she carries herself with more authority than Queen Eleanor ever could. She is a widow, but her influence is immense. King Francis I, your father-in-law, even entrusted her with the care of his own children at one point. She holds Henri's heart in her hand, a fact made painfully clear by the way his eyes always seek her out in a crowded room. Here's a quirky, almost absurd detail about Diane de Poitiers. She was an advocate for and a practitioner of a kind of health regimen that was highly unusual for the time. It was said she took cold baths every morning and rode her horse for hours, even in the dead of winter. It was her way of maintaining her famed beauty and vitality, and it worked, to a degree that made her the subject of envy and fascination. While other noblemen were caked in white lead makeup and layers of perfumed powder, Diane embraced a more vigorous routine. Imagine the whispers about this beautiful older woman riding out at dawn, her face bare to the elements. It's the kind of dedication that to you seems both bizarre and terrifying. You wonder if this is what it takes to hold a king's son's heart. Historians still argue whether Diane's influence over Henri was purely romantic, or if it was more akin to a maternal guiding hand. Some believe she was a political manipulator, a seasoned courtier who saw in the young and insecure Henri a path to power. Others believe their bond was genuine, a deep and abiding love that transcended the norms of courtly life. For you, the answer doesn't matter. All you know is that her presence makes your husband a ghost and your marriage a charade. You are a young bride, and you are already in a love triangle you did not sign up for, with a woman who holds all the cards. Your days are spent watching her, observing the way she moves, the way she speaks, the way she subtly directs your husband's actions. You learn to hate her, with a quiet, burning intensity that is all the more powerful for being suppressed. You cannot show your anger or your hurt. It would be a sign of weakness. So you swallow it, day after day, year after year, letting the bitter taste of jealousy become a part of you. You are a wife who is not a wife, and the purpose for which you were brought here, to produce an heir, remains unfulfilled. Your marriage is a failure in the only way that matters. The months turn into years, and there is no child. This is the central anxiety of your life. The pressure from the court, from King Francis, and even from your husband is immense. They are not asking you if you are happy. They are asking you if you are pregnant. And the answer is always no. The court physicians are brought in, the prayers are said, and the whispers grow louder. They speak of your barrenness, a woman's greatest failing in this era. They hint at sending you away, of annulling the marriage and bringing in a new wife, a new princess who can do what you cannot. The spectre of failure hangs over you, more terrifying than any ghost. You feel the cold, hard reality of your situation. You are a political tool and you're no longer serving your purpose. You are an extra mouth to feed, a costly ornament on a very expensive tree. You're beginning to understand that to survive in this court you need more than just good breeding or a fat dowry. You need to be indispensable. You need to find a way to make them need you, to make them fear the thought of losing you. But how? The answer is not yet clear, but the seeds of your future ruthless pragmatism are being sown in the silent, lonely corners of the palace, watered by the tears you refuse to shed. The path to the throne is a narrow one, and you're starting to realise that to get there, you may have to walk over a few people. You walk through the halls of the Louvre, and you are a ghost. Not in the sense that you are unseen. Everyone sees you, of course, but in the sense that you are not there. Your body is present, draped in the finest French silks, but your spirit is somewhere else, trapped in a silent internal scream. The sheer isolation of your existence is a physical weight. You live in a golden cage, a palace of such stunning beauty that it mocks your imprisonment. The soaring ceilings, the intricate tapestries, the heavy wooden doors that seal you into your own private world of quiet despair. Every detail of your life is a testament to the opulence of the French monarchy, and every detail reminds you that you are a possession, not a person. Your husband, Henri, is equally a ghost, though for different reasons. He's present in the court, a silent figure at his father's side, a man in a constant state of comparison and defeat. He's not the beloved Dauphin, his elder brother Francis. He is the spare, and you are the spare's spare, a wife brought in to serve a purpose that now seems impossible. You see him, but you don't know him. You share a bed, but not a life. The physical intimacy, if it happens at all, is a cold, perfunctory duty, a mechanical act performed in the hope of an heir. There is no warmth, no conversation, no shared laughter. You are two people trapped in a gilded box, each staring at the opposite wall. A mainstream historical fact about your husband's brother, the Dauphin Francis, is that he was a favourite of both his father and the court. He was everything Henri was not. Charismatic, skilled in jousting and hunting, and outwardly confident. His popularity only deepened Henri's sense of inadequacy. You witness this dynamic every day, the easy camaraderie between the king and his eldest son, and the cold, formal distance he keeps with Henri. This family drama isn't just a personal matter, it's a political one. It means that should something happen to Francis, the future of the French throne rests on a man who has been emotionally crippled by his own father's disapproval. And it rests on you, his silent, foreign wife. And then there is Diane de Poitiers. You see her everywhere. She's a constant presence at Henri's side. She's at court ceremonies, she is at hunts, she's even in the private chambers. She's a woman of exceptional beauty and poise, and she commands a respect that you, the legitimate wife, can only dream of. The power she holds is not just romantic, it's political. She's a confidant to the king, a source of guidance for Henri, and a key player in the court's many intrigues. You're a young girl, barely a woman, and you're up against a master of courtly life, a woman who has been playing the game for decades. Here's a quirky tidbit about Diane de Poitiers and her unique sense of style. She was known to dress almost exclusively in black and white, the official colours of her late husband. While this might seem like a simple nod to mourning, it was also a clever way to stand out in a court obsessed with vibrant, jewel-toned silks and satins. She was a silhouette in a sea of colour, a stark, powerful image that drew the eye and made her instantly recognisable. Imagine everyone else in reds, golds and blues, and then there is Diane, a striking figure in monochromatic elegance. It's a small detail, but it speaks to a woman who was acutely aware of her image and who used every tool at her disposal to project an aura of power and uniqueness. You watch her, and you realise that even in something as simple as a dress, she is asserting her dominance. Historians still argue whether King Francis I approved of Henri's affair with Diane de Poitiers, or merely tolerated it. Some sources suggest he saw it as a harmless distraction for his sullen son, a way for him to find a modicum of happiness. Other accounts hint that he was deeply resentful of her influence, feeling that she had usurped his own authority over his son. For you, the answer doesn't matter. All you know is that the man you are supposed to love is in thrall to another woman, and that this fact is openly, even proudly, displayed for the entire court to see. You are a public humiliation, a walking symbol of your husband's disinterest and your own powerlessness. The pressure to produce an heir becomes a living, breathing entity, a monster that follows you from room to room. The court physicians are called in to examine you, a series of humiliating and ineffective rituals. They prescribe strange concoctions, from powdered jewels to donkey's milk. They speak in hushed tones about your barrenness, a word that feels like a curse. Your stomach cramps with anxiety. Your heart pounds with a constant low-level dread. Every month you hope, and every month that hope is cruelly dashed. The looks of pity and contempt grow sharper, and the whispers about an annulment get louder. You're 16, 17, then 18, and still there is no child. Your position is precarious, and you know it. The only thing keeping you in this gilded prison is the fact that Henri is not yet the Dauphin. As long as his elder brother lives, you are a luxury the court can afford. But if something were to happen to Francis, and Henri became the heir to the throne, your status as a barren wife would be a political liability too great to bear. You would be cast aside, replaced by a new, more fertile queen. The weight of this possibility is a suffocating blanket, a constant reminder that your worth is measured only in your ability to reproduce. You learn to be silent and to observe. You learn that power is not always loud. It is in the subtle glance, the murmured word, the careful placement of an ally. You begin to understand the complex web of patronage and betrayal that defines the French court. You're not a player yet, but you are a careful student. You see how the king plays his nobles against each other, how alliances shift with the wind. You realise that your only hope is to stop being a pawn and to start becoming a player. Your salvation, strangely, comes from an unexpected place. Your husband's brother, the Dauphin Francis. He is an avid sportsman, a man who lives for the joust and the hunt. He is in the prime of his life, a figure of strength and vitality, but he is reckless. And then, one day, in a series of events that still perplexes historians, he dies. He is not killed in a tournament, he is not struck down by a rival. He simply falls ill after a game of tennis and dies within a few days. The court is in shock, and you, for the first time in your life, feel a tremor of something other than despair. Henri is no longer the Duke of Orléans, he is the Dauphin. And you, the barren wife, are now the Dauphine of France, a step away from being queen. The chessboard has been turned on its head, and you're still standing. The golden cage now feels a little less like a prison, and a little more like a launching pad. The game, which was once so stacked against you, has suddenly and miraculously changed. Your struggle is far from over, but the rules have just shifted in your favour. You are in the thick of it now, the death of the Dauphin. Francis sends a shockwave through the court, and for a few dizzying days you're caught in the eye of the storm. The whispers that once followed you, those cruel remarks about your barrenness and your foreignness, are silenced. Not out of respect, but out of a sudden, dawning terror. The man they once mocked, your quiet and sullen husband, is now the heir to the throne. And you, the Medici girl, the shopkeeper's daughter, are one step away from being the Queen of France. The transformation is almost comical in its speed. You see the glances of your former detractors, now filled with a strained politeness, a desperate desire to curry favour. The court is thrown into mourning, a performative display of grief that feels hollow to you. King Francis I, for all his bluster and grandeur, is a broken man. He has lost his favourite son, the one who was meant to carry on his legacy. The Dauphin. Francis's sudden death sparks a frenzy of suspicion. There are rumours of poison, whispers of foul play, and fingers are pointed at a number of people, including, for a short time, your husband, and even yourself. But the blame eventually, and publicly, lands on an Italian courtier, a man named Montecuccoli, who is tortured and executed, A mainstream historical fact of this period is the sheer political chaos caused by the Dauphin's death. It wasn't just a family tragedy, it was a national crisis. The official cause of death was pleurisy, a lung infection, but the rumours of poison were so persistent that they led to a public trial and execution. It's a powerful reminder that in this world, death is never just death. It is always a political event, a chance for a rival to gain an advantage or for a scapegoat to be found. The swiftness with which Montecuccoli was killed shows a court in a panic, desperate to find an answer, any answer, to explain the inexplicable loss of its future king. With the old Dauphin gone, your husband, Henri, is thrust into a new and unfamiliar role. He is now the centre of attention, the focus of his father's hopes, and the target of countless petitioners. The pressure on him is immense. He becomes even more withdrawn, more sullen, more reliant on the one person who has always made him feel secure, Diane de Poitiers. Her influence over him grows exponentially. She is no longer just his mistress. She is his chief advisor, his emotional crutch, his political counsel. She helps him navigate the treacherous waters of courtly life, a role you, his wife, should have filled. You watch their dynamic with a quiet, burning resentment. They are a unit, a power couple in everything but name. Henri gives her lavish gifts, grants her favours, and allows her to command a respect that far outweighs her official title as a duchess. You see the way he looks at her, and it's a look of a man who is utterly and completely devoted. He is a king in waiting, and his heart belongs to another woman. It's a cruel irony. You have finally gained status, but you have lost any hope of gaining your husband's affection. You are now the Dauphine, a position of immense power, and you feel more powerless than ever. Here's a quirky tidbit about the king's love for Diane de Poitiers. Not the Dauphin's, but the king himself, Francis I. While it was widely known that Diane was Henri's mistress, she also had an unusual relationship with the king. He was a notorious womanizer, but he seemed to have a genuine respect for Diane that went beyond mere flirtation. He admired her intelligence and her political acumen, and it's rumoured that he even consulted her on matters of state. This complex dynamic, a love triangle of sorts that included both father and son, is an oddity that speaks to Diane's singular magnetism. It must have been a strange and unsettling thing to watch, your father-in-law and husband both captivated by the same woman. Historians still argue whether Francis I's acceptance of Henry's relationship with Diane was an act of genuine affection for his son, or a calculated move to keep him in check. Some believe the king saw Diane as a stabilising force for his insecure second son, a woman who could provide the emotional support he, as a demanding father, could not. Others argue that it was an almost passive-aggressive move, a way for the king to assert his ultimate authority by allowing a relationship he could, at any moment, end. The fact that the king publicly honoured Diane, even referring to her as his bonne amie, good friend, only adds to the complexity of the situation. For you, it's a constant public reminder that you're not just a second choice, you're a political inconvenience. The pressure to produce an heir now becomes almost unbearable. With Henri as the Dauphin, a son is no longer just a matter of dynasty, it is a matter of national security. The French line, which has been secure for so long, is now hanging on a thread. You have been married for a decade, and there is no child. Every month is a fresh agony. The physicians are back with even more bizarre and invasive treatments. They wrap you in linens soaked in herb-infused water. They have you ingest strange concoctions made from animal parts. You are a science experiment, a vessel they are trying to fix, and you're beginning to feel like a broken thing. You are a barren queen, a woman who has failed in her most fundamental duty. The whispers return, but this time they are louder, more confident. The idea of an annulment is no longer a distant threat. It is an active topic of conversation at court. There is talk of finding a new Dauphine, a new younger woman who can give France what you cannot. The court is abuzz with potential candidates. You hear the names of other princesses, other noble women who are younger, prettier, and most importantly have a track record of fertility. You are at a precipice. The only thing that has saved you so far is your quiet demeanour and your strategic silence. You have made no enemies. You have given no one a reason to actively work against you, but silence will not be enough to save you now. You have to do something. You have to find a way to become pregnant, or you will be sent back to Italy in disgrace, a failed queen. The years of quiet resentment, the years of watching Henry's devotion to another woman, the years of being a ghost in your own home, it all comes to a head. This is the moment when the quiet, demure Catherine de' Medici begins to fade, and the woman who would later be known for her ruthlessness and her obsession with control begins to emerge. Your very survival depends on a miracle, and if a miracle doesn't come on its own, you will find a way to create one. The air in the chateau, which once felt so suffocating, now crackles with a new energy. Your husband, now the Dauphin Henri, is no longer the sullen boy you married. He's a man of purpose, a king in waiting, and his reliance on Diane de Poitiers has become the open scandal of the court. You're forced to watch, day after day, as she holds his arm, as he consults her on matters of state, as he heaps her with gifts and titles that rightfully belong to you. He gave her the Château de Chenonceau, a magnificent castle that spans the River Cher, a gift so extravagant it makes the entire court gasp. This wasn't just an affair, it was a parallel court, a rival queen, and she was winning. This is a mainstream historical fact. Henri II's devotion to Diane de Poitiers was absolute and public. He made her one of the most powerful women in France, giving her control of royal finances and a position of immense influence at court. She was given the Château de Chenonceau by royal decree, a blatant and public display of his favour that shamed you and angered many of the old noble families. Imagine having to live with that humiliation, to know that your husband has given a national treasure to his mistress, a symbol of his affection that is more powerful than any gesture he has ever made to you. You are the Dauphine, the woman who should be at his side, advising him, guiding him. But that role is already taken. You are a wife in name only, a ghost in your own marriage. You see the subtle, cruel ways Diane asserts her power. She signs her letters to the king with a flourish that resembles his own signature. She wears his royal colours of black and white. She is the Shadow Queen, and you are the queen in the shadow. The resentment that has been simmering for years begins to boil over. You are a woman of immense pride and ambition, and you are being systematically erased. Here's a quirky tidbit that adds to the bizarre nature of their relationship. Henri, as a mark of his utter devotion, would have their shared H and D initials carved into the stonework of the royal palaces, often intertwining them. The problem was that the H and D could also be interpreted as the H for Henri and the C for Catherine, so he would add a little detail to the D, a little cross or a tail, to ensure that everyone knew the initial was for Diane and not for you, his wife. Can you imagine the sheer pettiness of that? To go to such lengths to exclude you, even in the very walls of your shared home. It's a small detail, but it speaks volumes about the level of public humiliation you were forced to endure. Historians still argue whether Henri's obsession with Diane was a true love affair or a psychological dependency. Some scholars believe that Diane filled a void left by his cold and distant father, providing him with the emotional support and guidance he had always craved. Others argue that it was a toxic and manipulative relationship, with Diane using her beauty and intellect to secure her own power and fortune. For you, it doesn't matter. The result is the same. You are alone. The pressure to produce an heir is now at a fever pitch. Your barrenness, once a personal failing, is now a national crisis. The French nobility, the people, even the king himself are openly worried about the succession. The whispers of an annulment have become louder, more persistent. You're aware of a quiet movement to replace you, to find a more suitable wife for the future king. The fact that Diane has no children of her own is a comfort, but it's a small one. It means she can't be the mother of the next king, but it doesn't mean you will be either. You begin to take matters into your own hands. You've heard the whispers of strange remedies and ancient rituals. You've been raised in a world where science and superstition are two sides of the same coin. You begin to seek out new physicians, not the court's official doctors, but men who live on the fringes, men who dabble in alchemy and astrology. You are a woman on a desperate quest, and you're willing to try anything. Your quest leads you to a shadowy figure, a man known only as Cosimo Ruggieri, an Italian astrologer and alchemist who is whispered to have a knack for strange and powerful elixirs. You meet him in secret in a small, dusty room far from the prying eyes of the court. He is a man of secrets, and he promises you a solution. He promises you a son. The price is not money, but your trust, your complete and utter faith in his dark arts. This is the turning point. You have always been a pragmatic woman, a product of the rational, artistic world of Florence. But the desperation of your situation, The humiliation of your public life has driven you to the edge. You're no longer relying on the wisdom of the court, the traditional remedies of the church, or the grace of God. You're turning to the dark, uncertain world of the occult. You're making a deal with a man who promises a miracle, but who could just as easily be a charlatan. And you're willing to risk everything, including your reputation, for a chance at a child. The concoctions he gives you are strange, bitter, and at times horrifying. They're a blend of herbs, animal parts, and who knows what else. You drink them in the dark, in the privacy of your chamber, hoping against hope that they will work. The taste is vile, the texture is thick and unpleasant, and you force it down, your eyes shut against the darkness, your mind focused on a single, desperate prayer. For a son. You become pregnant. The news is met with a mix of relief and disbelief at court. It's been 10 long, barren years, the physicians are baffled, the nobles are suspicious, the king is overjoyed, and your husband, Henri, is relieved. The pressure is off. You have finally done your duty. The fact that you have conceived at a time when he is the Dauphin, when a son is more important than ever, seems almost miraculous. You have won a victory. A small one, but a victory nonetheless. You are no longer the barren wife. You are the mother-to-be. You are the vessel of the future king. And with this new power, you begin to assert yourself. You're no longer a ghost in the halls of the chateau. You're a presence. You are Catherine de' Medici, and you're not going anywhere. The path to the throne is no longer blocked. You've just taken a massive, albeit desperate, step forward. The game is still rigged against you, but now you have an unexpected card up your sleeve. The news of your pregnancy sweeps through the court like a wave, washing away years of doubt and derision. The whispers of barren are replaced by murmurs of blessed. For the first time in a decade, you're not a source of pity or contempt, but of hope. Your husband, Henri, is relieved. He is now free from the immense pressure to secure the dynasty. King Francis I, your father-in-law, is overjoyed. He finally has a grandchild on the way, a living testament to his continued legacy. For a brief, shimmering moment, you are the most important person in France. But your joy is a fragile thing, a delicate glass ornament in a room of swinging mallets. You're pregnant, yes, but you're also still living in the shadow of Diane de Poitiers. She is still at Henri's side, still the keeper of his heart, still the powerful shadow queen. She even has the audacity to act as if your pregnancy is her project, a testament to her influence and guidance over your husband. She's kind to you, overly so, and it feels more like a subtle taunt than a genuine gesture of goodwill. Her kindness is a reminder that she is not threatened by you. Not yet. Your pregnancy is a public event, a state affair. The court physicians, who so recently dismissed you as a lost cause, are now constantly in attendance. They monitor your diet, your movements, your every ache and pain. You're no longer just a woman. You're a national treasure, a vessel for the future of France. The constant scrutiny is exhausting, but you endure it. You endure it all for the sake of the life growing inside you, and for the promise of a future that is finally, after all these years, within your grasp. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the sheer medical and personal terror of this time. Childbirth was one of the most dangerous experiences a woman could go through. The infant mortality rate was astronomically high, and so was the mortality rate for mothers. For a queen, the pressure was immense. You're not just giving birth, you are securing a dynasty. The anxiety surrounding your pregnancy is not just yours, it is shared by an entire nation. Every twinge, every cramp, every sign of a possible miscarriage sends a wave of panic through the court. You are a walking, breathing symbol of hope, and everyone is terrified that you might stumble. You give birth to a son. He's named Francis, after his grandfather. The celebrations are magnificent, a series of feasts and tournaments and bonfires that light up the night sky. The relief is palpable. France has an heir. You have done your duty. You're no longer just a barren wife. You're the mother of a future king. Your position is now secure. The whispers of an annulment are finally definitively silenced. You have won. But your victory is not a simple one. The birth of your son is followed by another pregnancy, and then another, and another. You will go on to have 10 children, a remarkable feat for any woman, but especially for a queen whose first decade of marriage was marked by barrenness. But your joy is always tinged with anxiety. You're a mother now, but the path to a crown is paved with tragedy. Your children are sickly, their constitutions weak. Some die in infancy, a heartbreak that you are forced to endure again and again. You are a queen, but you're also a mother who has to bury her children. Here's a quirky tidbit about your childbearing years. After your first son, Francis, was born, you gave birth to a daughter, Elizabeth, who would go on to be a Queen of Spain, then another son, Louis, who died in infancy. And then, most famously, a set of twin girls who were born with webbed fingers, a condition that was considered a bad omen by some at court. One of them, Joan, died immediately, but the other, Victoria, lived for a short time. Imagine the horror of having your children born with a visible deformity, and the court whispering that it was a sign of God's displeasure. It adds a macabre layer to the joy of giving birth, a reminder that even in victory there is always a seed of future sorrow. Historians still argue whether the long period of barrenness was due to your husband's neglect, a simple medical issue, or perhaps even the effects of some of the strange remedies you were taking. Some scholars suggest that Henry's lack of interest in you meant that you were not having intercourse often enough to conceive. Others point to the fact that you were only a teenager for the first few years of your marriage, and that it's possible your body simply wasn't ready. The fact that you were so fertile once you started having children suggests there was not a fundamental problem. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of all three. But for you, the years of pain and anxiety leading up to your first pregnancy are a source of deep-seated trauma that will colour the rest of your life. Your success as a mother solidifies your position, but it also creates a new kind of tension. Diane de Poitiers, who was once your rival in a love triangle, is now your rival in the court. She is still Henry's mistress, still the woman who holds his heart. She is a presence in the nursery, in the antechamber, in every aspect of your public life. She is the one who chooses the nannies, the tutors, and the household staff for your children. You are their mother, but she is the one who controls their upbringing. She is the one who is given the public credit for their good health and their cleverness. It's a subtle, but brutal, kind of psychological warfare. You are a mother now, but your children are being raised by another woman. You see the affection Henri has for them, an affection that you have longed for yourself, and you feel a strange mix of joy and resentment. He is a good father, a doting father, but he is a distant husband. You are finally a part of the family, but you are not a part of the couple. The golden cage, which once felt so suffocating, now feels even more like a trap. You have done what was asked of you, you have produced an heir, and you have secured your place at court. But you are still a ghost in your own home, a queen in waiting who is constantly upstaged by the king's mistress. Your victory is a hollow one, and you know it. The years of quiet humiliation have hardened you, and the loss of your children has broken your heart. But in the midst of this sorrow, a new obsession begins to form. You have conquered the problem of fertility. Now, you will conquer the problem of aging. You will not let another woman, or the relentless march of time, ever best you again. The seeds of the Coffin legend are being planted, and they are growing in the fertile soil of your quiet desperation. Your life is now a whirlwind of pregnancies and courtly duties. You have done what was asked of you, and you are producing a small army of children. But with each birth, a new anxiety takes root. The infant mortality rate is staggering, and your children seem particularly susceptible to illness. You are a mother, but you are also a mourner. The loss of your infant daughter Joan, one of a set of twins, is a quiet heartbreak. You hold her tiny body in your arms, a brief life extinguished before it had a chance to begin. You feel a new kind of fear, a terror that has nothing to do with political rivals or ambitious mistresses. This is a primal fear, the fear of losing your own flesh and blood. The court physicians offer their usual remedies, prayers, bleedings, and vile-tasting herbal concoctions. But you are a woman who has already sought out unconventional help. You still have a connection to the world of your birth, to the rich intellectual history of the Florentine Renaissance, which was a time of great art and great superstition. You remember the whispers from your childhood, the tales of alchemists and astrologers who promised not just gold, but miracles. The desperation you felt when you were barren now returns, but this time it is a desperation to keep your children alive, to secure their health, to protect them from a world that seems determined to take them from you. This is a mainstream historical fact that underscores the intellectual and scientific climate of your time. The Renaissance was a period of intense curiosity and innovation, but it was also a time when the lines between science, alchemy, and magic were blurred. People believed in the power of astrology to predict the future, and in the power of alchemy to not just turn lead into gold, but to create elixirs of life and health. Your search for a cure for your children's illnesses and for your own aging is a reflection of this cultural moment. You are a woman of the Renaissance, willing to look beyond traditional medicine for answers. You turn once more to the man who helped you conceive your children, Cosimo Ruggieri, the Florentine alchemist. He is an unsettling presence, a man with a gaze that seems to see too much, but he is also a man who has delivered on his promise. You meet with him in secret, in a small rented house far from the gilded halls of the Louvre. He is your confidant, your sorcerer, the man you have placed your trust in against all good sense. You're no longer just asking for a son, you're asking for immortality, a way to defy the natural order of things. He provides you with new potions, new elixirs. They are not just for your children, they are for you. He promises you that if you want to protect your children, you must first protect yourself. He speaks of preserving your youth, of slowing the relentless march of time. He gives you strange glowing liquids to drink and creams to apply to your skin. The ingredients are bizarre, a mix of rare herbs, powdered stones, and, so it is said, more grotesque animal parts. You don't ask what's in them, you don't want to know, you simply close your eyes, hold your breath, and swallow. Here's a quirky tidbit about some of the remedies being sought by European royalty in your time. It was a common, if fringe, belief that drinking powdered gold could lead to immortality. It was thought that since gold was a precious and incorruptible metal, its ingestion would make the human body equally so. Imagine the absurdity of it. A king or queen drinking a solution of crushed metal, believing it would grant them eternal life. It's a powerful illustration of the lengths to which people were willing to go to defy mortality, and a bizarre fusion of science and superstition. The remedies Ruggieri gives you, while perhaps not gold-based, are certainly in the same vein of magical thinking. Historians still argue about the true nature of your relationship with Cosimo Ruggieri. Some scholars, particularly those prone to a more sensational view of history, claim he was a dark magician, a necromancer who practiced black magic and held power over you through his dark arts. They point to the fact that he was later imprisoned and almost executed for sorcery as proof of his malevolent nature. Other, more sceptical historians argue that he was simply a charlatan, an opportunist who preyed on your desperation and sold you harmless, if expensive, placebos. They argue that your success in having children and your later political triumphs were due to your own intelligence and hard work, not to any magical influence. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in between. But for you, in the moment, he is a man who holds the key to your future. He is a man who can give you what no one else can. Hope. Your obsession with preserving your health and beauty, once a quiet fear, now becomes a full-blown mission. You see the signs of age on your face, the fine lines, the sallow complexion. You see how your husband's devotion to Diane de Poitiers, a woman who is almost 20 years your senior, is a testament to her seemingly ageless beauty. You begin to believe that your physical appearance is not just a matter of vanity, but a matter of power. If you can defy time, if you can remain youthful and beautiful, you will have an advantage over your rivals. You will be a living miracle, a walking monument to your own resilience. The concoctions you're given are no longer just for fertility, they are for longevity. You begin to change your daily routine, incorporating strange rituals that Ruggieri has prescribed. You bathe in strange herbal solutions, you ingest bitter liquids, you apply bizarre salves to your skin. The practices are secret, performed in the dark of night, far from the prying eyes of the court. You're a queen, but you're also a woman engaged in a desperate and lonely war against time. The physical and psychological toll is immense. You're putting your health at risk for a promise you're not even sure is real. But the alternative is to age, to grow old, and to fade into irrelevance. You are a woman who has been forged in the fire of loss and humiliation. You have been a pawn, a possession, and a ghost. You have fought for your place, and you have won. But you know that your victory is fragile. It is a victory that depends on your continued ability to produce a healthy line of children, and on your continued political relevance. You're not willing to leave anything to chance. You have already dipped your toe into the world of the dark arts. You're now willing to dive in head first. The legend of the queen who slept in a coffin is no longer just a bizarre rumour. It is a desperate, terrifying truth in the making. You're a mother, a constant state of joy and terror. Your womb has become a factory for princes and princesses, a testament to your hard-won victory over barrenness. But with each birth comes a new, more profound sense of dread. Your children, one after the other, are sickly, their small bodies racked by fevers, their constitutions too weak for the brutal realities of the 16th century life. You have given France its future, but it is a future built on a fragile foundation. You give birth to Claude, a robust daughter who survives, then to Louis, who dies in infancy. Then Elizabeth, then another set of twins, one of whom dies almost immediately, a heart-wrenching loss. Then Charles, then Henri, then your youngest, François. In all, you will bear 10 children. The sheer physical and emotional toll is immense. You are constantly pregnant, constantly nursing, constantly grieving. The joy of a new life is always tinged with the quiet terror that it will be taken from you. This is a mainstream historical fact that underscores the tragedy of your era. The mortality rate for children in the 16th century was staggeringly high, even for royalty. Of your 10 children, only 7 would survive to adulthood, and even then, many would die young. Your sons, the future kings of France, were particularly afflicted with poor health. Charles IX suffered from a nervous condition and tuberculosis, and Henri III was also plagued by illness. Your youngest son, François, had a frail constitution and was deeply scarred by smallpox. It seems that your hard-won fertility came with a terrible price, the relentless illness and loss of your children. You're a mother, and you're also a living testament to the fragility of life. The court physicians are useless. They prescribe bleedings, leeches and prayers, and their remedies do nothing to stem the tide of illness that sweeps through the nursery. You have spent a fortune on your children's health, on the best doctors, the finest herbs, the most exotic treatments. But nothing seems to work. The children cough, they shiver with fever, they grow pale and weak. You watch over them, helpless, and the quiet despair you once felt for your own barrenness is now multiplied by 100. Your husband, Henri, is a doting father. He loves his children, especially your son Francis. But his love is not a comfort to you. He's still enthralled to Diane de Poitiers, and she is a constant presence in the nursery. She's there when the children are born, when they are baptized, when they take their first steps. She's a shadow over your motherhood, a constant reminder that you are the mother, but she is the one who holds power. You're not raising your children. You're sharing them with a rival who has a claim to their father's heart that is more powerful than your own. Here's a quirky tidbit that must have added to the bizarre reality of your situation. Diane de Poitiers, as a sign of her immense influence, was given the right to govern the children's household. This meant that she had the authority to hire and fire tutors, nannies and servants, and to make all the major decisions regarding their education and upbringing. Can you imagine the sheer audacity of it? The King of France's children, the heirs to the throne, were being raised by his mistress. You, their mother, had no real say in the matter. It's a detail that adds a new layer of psychological warfare to your life. A public declaration that your husband trusts her more than he trusts you. Historians still argue about the true nature of Diane's involvement in your children's upbringing. Some scholars believe she was simply a devoted and caring godmother, a kind and maternal figure who loved the children and only wanted what was best for them. Others argue that she was a cruel and manipulative woman who used her position to undermine your authority and to secure her own power. She was a woman of immense charm and intelligence, but she was also a fierce rival. The truth is probably a bit of both. But for you, in the moment, her presence in the nursery is a bitter pill to swallow. Your life is a study in contrasts. You are a queen, living in a palace of immense wealth and beauty, and yet you are constantly consumed by the grief of losing your children. You are surrounded by a court of thousands of people, and yet you are utterly and completely alone in your pain. Your husband, Henri, is an arm's length away, but he is a world away. His heart is in the hands of another woman, and your heart is in the tiny cold hands of your dead children. You begin to retreat into yourself. The social life of the court, the dances, the hunts, the jousts, they all lose their lustre. You're a woman on a mission, and that mission is to protect your remaining children and to prepare for the day when you will be queen. You have to be strong, you have to be resilient, you have to be a rock in a sea of sorrow. The softness that was once a part of you begins to fade, and a new, more formidable persona begins to emerge. You are no longer the frightened girl from Florence. You are the mother of kings, the woman who survived 10 years of humiliation and barrenness, and the woman who is now a living testament to the will to survive. The deaths of your children, the illness that plagues your family, it all adds to your determination. You have to be a survivor, not just for yourself, but for your children. You have to secure their future, to ensure that they will not suffer the same humiliation and pain that you have. You begin to make plans. You begin to forge new alliances. You begin to study the political landscape of the court, not just as a spectator but as a player. You realise that your husband's devotion to Diane de Poitiers, which was once your greatest weakness, is now a potential strength. He is distracted. He is complacent. He is predictable. You, on the other hand, are none of those things. You are the quiet one, the one who is underestimated, the one who is overlooked, and you are ready to make your move. You have survived the horror of your children's deaths. You have survived the humiliation of your husband's mistress. You have survived the barren years. You are a survivor, and you are about to become a queen. You are the Dauphine, the mother of the future king, and you are a ghost in your own home. Your husband, Henri, now officially King Henri II after the death of his father, Francis I, has made his mistress, Diane de Poitiers, the most powerful woman in France. He has not only lavished her with gifts and titles, but he has also publicly and shamelessly elevated her above you, his legitimate wife and queen. You watch as he gives her the crown jewels. You see her preside over court functions, a place where you, the queen, should be standing. The humiliation is a constant gnawing ache. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the sheer audacity of King Henri II's public affair. He gave Diane the most important jewels of the crown, including the magnificent diamond known as the Le Grand Mazarin, a public declaration that his mistress was more worthy of his affection and his treasure than his queen. Imagine the scene. You, the queen, wearing a simple diadem, and her, the mistress, dripping in the jewels that should be adorning your neck. It's a humiliation so profound it's almost unimaginable. It is a public declaration of your own powerlessness, and a testament to his utter lack of respect for you. You are a woman who has endured everything. You have been a hostage, a political pawn, a barren wife, and a grieving mother. You have fought for your place, and you have won. But this is a new kind of battle, a psychological war that is being waged against you every single day. The court, which once whispered about your barrenness, now whispers about your shame. The nobles, who once looked to you for a sign of favour, now look to her. You are a queen with no court of your own, a woman with no husband, a mother whose children are being raised by a rival. You endure it all with a face of stone. You have learned that emotion is a luxury you cannot afford. To show your pain would be to give her a victory. To show your resentment would be to give your enemies a weapon. So you become an expert in the art of the poker face. You smile when she approaches. You nod when she speaks. You are a living, breathing monument to passive aggression, a woman who has mastered the art of being invisible in plain sight. Here's a quirky tidbit about Diane de Poitiers and her bizarre health regimen, a regimen that she reportedly doubled down on as she aged. She was a woman who was obsessed with her physical appearance and her vitality, a woman who reportedly drank a solution of gold to preserve her youth. This was not a rare belief at the time, but for her it was a daily ritual, a testament to her belief that she could defy the natural order of things. You see her, a woman in her 50s, a woman who should be old, and she's a picture of vitality and ageless beauty. You, a woman who is still in her 30s, feel the toll of 10 pregnancies, the grief of losing your children, the stress of your public humiliation. You begin to believe that there is a secret to her youth, a secret that you must discover if you are to survive. Historians still argue whether King Henri II's public devotion to Diane was a sign of genuine love or a form of political strategy. Some scholars argue that he was simply a man in love, a man who had finally found the emotional support he had been denied by his cold and distant father. Others argue that his relationship with Diane was a calculated move, a way to keep her and her powerful family on his side. He gave her titles and money, yes, but he also gave her the responsibility of managing the kingdom, a role that was, in many ways, a trap. He made her his public face, a lightning rod for the anger of the nobility, while he remained in the background pulling the strings. For you, the answer doesn't matter. All you know is that you're on the losing side of a very public war. Your life becomes a series of humiliations, each one more painful than the last. There is the time he gives her your mother-in-law's jewels. There is the time he refuses to have you crowned, a blatant public insult. There is the time he gives her a gift of a golden statuette of himself and her, a public monument to their love. You are a woman who has spent a decade fighting for a place at his side, and he is a man who is publicly and repeatedly rejecting you. The pressure is immense. The pain is a constant presence. You are a queen, and you are being systematically erased. Then, the final, most brutal humiliation. Henri is gravely injured in a jousting tournament. A lance shatters, and a sliver of wood pierces his eye. The court is in a panic. The doctors are called in, but it's clear that the king is dying. You, his wife, are by his side, but so is she. Diane de Poitiers is there, weeping and wailing, her grief as public and as performative as your own. The doctors order that she be kept away from his bedside, a decision that a part of you silently cheers. But she's not just a mistress. She's a mother figure, a confidant, and a political advisor. She's a woman who has a say in matters of state, and she's not going to be denied. He's dying. The doctors are trying everything. They are putting ground glass in his eye. They are trying to remove the sliver of wood, but it's clear that it's not going to work. He is in pain, he is delirious, and he is dying. You are a queen, and you are watching your husband, the man who has publicly shamed you for a decade, die. And a strange, cold thought enters your mind. The moment he dies, she loses everything. The moment he dies, you win. The crown jewels, the castles, the titles, they will all be yours. The power, the public acclaim, the right to rule, it will all be yours. The shame, the humiliation, the pain, it will all be a memory. He dies. His last breath is a gasp of pain, and a moment later, a gasp of relief. You are no longer the Dauphine, you are the Queen Regent, and you are a woman who has spent a decade fighting for this moment. You look at Diane de Poitiers, a woman who has just lost her king, her lover, her life. You see the look of terror in her eyes, the knowledge that her time is over. And you know, with a cold, hard certainty, that you have won. The chessboard has been turned on its head, and you are the queen, and you are about to do something that will shock the world. The king is dead. The silence that follows Henri II's last gasp is not one of sorrow, but of a kind of stunned anticipation. The court, a place that thrived on gossip and intrigue, is now a stage where all eyes are fixed on you, the woman they once dismissed. You, Catherine de' Medici, who for 10 years lived in the shadow of a king's mistress, are now a queen. The power that was so brazenly denied you for so long is now yours. Your first act as queen is swift, brutal, and utterly without mercy. You send a messenger to Diane de Poitiers, her former rival and the woman who had made your life a living hell. The message is simple. Give back the crown jewels, the castles, and the titles that were so unjustly given to you by the late king. The tone is not one of a request, but of a demand. You are not a petitioner, you are a queen, and you are reclaiming what is rightfully yours. She complies, of course. She has no choice. Her protector is dead, and she is nothing but an old woman with a young face and a tarnished reputation. The Château de Chenonceau, the magnificent castle that was a symbol of her power, is now yours. It's a victory more satisfying than any diamond. This is a mainstream historical fact that showcases your ruthless efficiency. You wasted no time in stripping Diane de Poitiers of her power and her possessions, a final act of retribution for a decade of humiliation. You are not a woman who believed in a slow, agonizing revenge. You believed in a swift, decisive, and public one. The court watched, mesmerized and terrified, as you dismantled a woman who had once been more powerful than you. They realized, with a dawning and unsettling sense of dread, that the quiet, demure Catherine they knew was a thing of the past. A new, more formidable queen had emerged. With your political power secured, your obsession with beauty and longevity takes a radical turn. You are a woman who has endured more than most. You are in your 40s, a mother of 10 children, and a survivor of a decade of public humiliation. You're beginning to see the first signs of age on your face, the fine lines around your eyes, the grey in your hair. You remember the seemingly ageless beauty of Diane de Poitiers, a woman who was a testament to the power of her own bizarre remedies. You begin to believe that her secret was not just a matter of powders and potions, but of something deeper, something more profound, something more bizarre. You consult with your personal alchemist, Cosimo Ruggieri, the man who helped you conceive your children and who has been giving you strange elixirs for years. You're no longer just asking for beauty, you're asking for immortality. You're asking for a way to defy the natural order of things, to stop the relentless march of time. He speaks to you of a strange and terrifying ritual, a practice that, he claims, has been used by ancient Egyptians to preserve their own beauty and vitality. Here's a quirky tidbit about ancient Egyptian burial practices that feeds into the legend. The Egyptians believed that a preserved body was essential for a person's soul to have an afterlife. The process of mummification was a complicated and ritualized one, and it involved removing the internal organs and then wrapping the body in linen. It was a practice that was meant to defy death, to preserve the body so that the soul could live forever. The story that Ruggieri tells you is a bizarre and macabre perversion of this ancient practice, a claim that you can achieve a kind of living mummification. Historians still argue whether the legend of the coffin is a genuine fact or a later fabrication. There is no hard evidence, no diary entries, no letters that definitively prove that you, Catherine de' Medici, ever slept in a coffin. Some scholars argue that the story was an invention of your political enemies, a way to paint you as a dark and sinister queen who dabbled in black magic. They point to the fact that the legend only gained prominence after your death, and that it was used to blacken your name and to delegitimize your reign. Other scholars argue that it is a reflection of your well-documented obsession with astrology and alchemy, and that it is entirely plausible that you would have taken such a bizarre step in your quest for eternal youth. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both, but for you, in the moment, it is a matter of life and death, of power and irrelevance. You begin the ritual. The coffin is made of a strange dark wood, and it is lined with herbs and resins that Ruggieri claims will slow the process of aging. It is a terrifying ritual, a macabre act of defiance against nature. You lie down in the coffin, your arms crossed over your chest, and you close your eyes. The lid is closed, and you are plunged into a world of total darkness. The air is thick with the scent of spices and decay, and the silence is a physical presence. You're not a living woman, you're a living corpse, a queen who has willingly entered her own grave. The first night is a nightmare of claustrophobia and terror. You fight against the urge to scream, to pound on the lid, to claw your way out. You feel the weight of the coffin on your body, the pressure on your chest, the suffocating stillness of the air. You are a queen, but you're also a woman who has just buried herself alive. The horror is a constant companion, a ghost that whispers in your ear. But you endure it. You endure it all for the sake of power, for the sake of survival, for the sake of a promise that you're not even sure is real. You begin to believe that the ritual is working. You feel a strange vitality in your body, a new sense of energy. Your skin, which was once so sallow, now seems to glow with a strange, otherworldly light. Your eyes, which were once so tired, now seem to sparkle with a newfound fire. The court begins to whisper. The people who once called you the Barren Queen now call you the Serpent Queen, a woman who has defied nature and who has a secret to her terrifying power. The legend has been born, and you, Catherine de' Medici, are its living, breathing embodiment. You have done it. You have embraced the bizarre, the macabre, the terrifying. The coffin, once a symbol of death, is now your nightly sanctuary. It is a space of cold, dark solitude, where you retreat from the endless courtly intrigue and the overwhelming burden of your new power. This is not a choice made lightly. It is a desperate, ritualized act of a woman who believes she can defy the very nature of time itself. Each night you perform the same ritual. You dismiss your ladies-in-waiting, extinguishing the candles and plunging your chamber into a total darkness that seems to swallow all sound. Your skin, which has been slathered with Ruggieri's strange, pungent unguents, feels tight and oddly alive. The unguents are a mix of rare herbs, ground minerals, and, so it is said, more sinister components. You do not ask. You do not want to know. You simply close your eyes and lie down in the dark, polished wood, a living woman in her own grave. The lid closes with a soft, final thud, and you are alone. The first few weeks were a living nightmare of claustrophobia. Your heart pounded in your chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. Your mind screamed. begging you to claw your way out, to escape the suffocating weight of the wood. But you fought it. You focused on the cold, hard reality of your situation. You have a kingdom to run, a legacy to secure, and a rival who, though stripped of her power, is still a memory of your humiliation. You are a queen, and queens do not give in to fear. You are a woman who has endured a decade of public shame, and you will not be defeated by a wooden box. This is a mainstream historical fact that adds a layer of quiet terror to your life. The concept of using a coffin for a bizarre health ritual, while perhaps a later fabrication, is rooted in the very real cultural fears of the 16th century. Death was a constant presence. Plague, war, and disease were a daily reality. The notion of a person willingly embracing the symbols of death to prolong life would have been seen as either an act of profound madness or one of unspeakable sorcery. The legend, whether true or not, speaks to a queen who was seen as being both deeply devout and terrifyingly pragmatic, a woman who would go to any length to secure her power. You begin to feel the effects, or at least you believe you do. You feel a strange vitality coursing through your veins, a sense of energy you haven't felt since you were a girl. The lines on your face, which were once so deep, seem to soften. Your skin, once so sallow, now seems to have a faint ghostly glow. The people at court begin to notice. They notice your newfound energy, your unflagging stamina, your unnerving calmness in the face of political chaos. They whisper behind your back, their words a mix of fear and fascination. They no longer call you the Baron Queen or the Italian. They call you the Serpent Queen, a woman who has a secret to her terrifying power. Here's a quirky tidbit about some of the more bizarre beauty rituals of the time. While most noble women were using lead-based powders and noxious face washes to maintain their pallor and to hide their blemishes, others were trying more esoteric and bizarre remedies. There were whispers of women using nightingale droppings, crocodile dung, and other strange ingredients to create face masks. The belief was that the more grotesque the ingredient, the more powerful the remedy. The substances that Ruggieri provides you with are in the same vein. They are not just powders and potions. They are a bizarre alchemical concoction designed to defy nature itself. The legend of the coffin is the ultimate expression of this kind of magical thinking, a belief that you can force the universe to bend to your will. Historians still argue about the true nature of your physical appearance at this time. Some scholars argue that your newfound beauty was simply a trick of the light, a product of your political triumph. They argue that once you had power, you had more confidence, more resources, and more control over your image. They point to the fact that you became a patron of the arts, commissioning portraits that depicted you as a powerful and regal figure. Other scholars argue that there was a real physical change, that the herbal remedies and the bizarre ritual you were practicing had a legitimate, if temporary, effect on your health. They argue that the power of belief, combined with a healthier diet and a more rigorous routine, could have led to a genuine improvement in your physical appearance. The truth, as always, is probably somewhere in the middle. But for you, the belief is everything. You are a woman who has a new purpose. You are no longer just a queen. You are a living legend. You are a woman who has a secret, a source of power that no one else can understand. You use this legend to your advantage. You become more distant, more mysterious, more unnerving. You preside over the court with a cool, detached air. You no longer engage in the petty gossip and the small rivalries of the nobility. You're a step above them, a woman who is not just a ruler, but a force of nature. The political chaos that followed your husband's death is a fire that you are more than ready to fight. Your eldest son, Francis II, is now king, but he is a sickly boy who is little more than a puppet in the hands of his wife, Mary, Queen of Scots, and her powerful Guy's family. They are a threat to your power, a rival faction that is determined to control the throne. But they do not know the woman they are up against. They do not know the woman who sleeps in a coffin. They do not know the queen who has already defeated death itself. You are about to show them exactly what you are capable of. Your reign as Queen Regent is not one of serene, untroubled power. It is a time of profound political and religious chaos, and you are in the eye of the storm. Your eldest son, Francis II, is a sickly boy, barely a man, and he is a pawn in the hands of his beautiful and ambitious wife, Mary, Queen of Scots, and her powerful uncles, the Duke of Guise and the Cardinal of Lorraine. They are a rival faction, a powerful force that is determined to seize control of the throne, and you are the only thing standing in their way. The court is a place of whispering shadows and shifting loyalties. The Protestant Reformation, which has been simmering for decades, is now a raging fire, and the Guise family, as devout Catholics, are determined to stamp it out with an iron fist. You, a woman who has a pragmatic view of power, believe that a more tolerant approach is needed. You're not a woman of faith, you're a woman of statecraft, and you believe that a peaceful and prosperous France is more important than a dogmatic one. The conflict between the two factions, your pragmatism and their religious fanaticism, is a constant source of tension. This is a mainstream historical fact that illustrates the political and religious turmoil of the time. The reign of Francis II was a brief and unstable one, and it was marked by a power struggle between you, the Queen Mother, and the powerful Guise family. The conflict was not just a personal one, it was a national one, a proxy war between the Catholic and Protestant factions of France. Your moderate stance, while perhaps a sign of your political genius, was also a source of suspicion. You were seen as being too tolerant, too willing to compromise with the enemies of the Catholic Church. The legend of your coffin, which has been growing with each passing day, becomes a new weapon in this war. The Guise family, unable to defeat you in open court, begin to use the legend to their advantage. They whisper that you are a sorceress, a black magician who has made a pact with the devil. They claim that your newfound vitality and your political genius are not a result of your hard work and your intelligence, but of a dark and sinister power. They use the legend to paint you as an unnatural and dangerous woman, a threat to the Catholic Church and to the very soul of France. The rumours are vicious and relentless. They speak of your nightly ritual, of your strange elixirs, of your unholy pacts. They claim that you are not just a queen, but a monster in human form. The court is abuzz with these stories, and you, the woman who once longed to be seen, are now a figure of profound fear and fascination. The nobles, who once looked at you with pity, now look at you with a mix of awe and terror. They are afraid of you. They are afraid of the woman who has defied death, the woman who has a secret that no one can understand. Here's a quirky tidbit about the art of courtly slander in your time. The rumours about your sorcery were often spread through handwritten pamphlets and crude woodcut illustrations that were secretly distributed around Paris and other major cities. They were not just about you, they were about your entire family. They depicted your children as being sickly and deformed, as a punishment from God for your dark arts. They were a form of psychological warfare, a way to turn the people against you without ever having to make a direct accusation. The sheer viciousness of these attacks shows the level of fear and hatred you inspired in your enemies. Historians still argue whether the Guise family genuinely believed you were a sorceress, or if they were simply using the legend as a political tool. Some scholars argue that in the deeply religious climate of the 16th century, it is entirely possible that they genuinely believed the rumours. They point to the fact that the belief in sorcery and witchcraft was widespread, and that the Guise, as devout Catholics, would have seen your Italian customs and your reliance on Ruggieri as a sign of your malevolent nature. Other scholars argue that the Guise were simply clever political operators who used the rumours to undermine your authority. They argue that they were not afraid of you, but of your power, and that they would have used any tool at their disposal to defeat you. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both. You, the Serpent Queen, do not respond to the rumours. You do not dignify them with a response. You know that to do so would be to admit that they have power. You simply continue to rule, to make political decisions to secure the future of France. You're a woman who has endured a decade of public humiliation, and you're not going to be defeated by a few whispered rumours. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength. The legend of the coffin becomes a part of your public persona. You're a woman who is not afraid of death, a woman who has stared into the abyss and has come out stronger. You are a woman who has a secret to her terrifying power, and you use that secret to your advantage. You become more distant, more mysterious, more unnerving. You preside over the court with a cool, detached air. You no longer engage in the petty gossip and the small rivalries of the nobility. You're a step above them, a woman who is not just a ruler, but a force of nature. The reign of your son Francis is a brief one. He dies after only a year and a half on the throne, leaving you as the most powerful person in France. You're no longer just a queen regent, you are the undisputed ruler of the kingdom. Your youngest son, Charles IX, is now king, a boy of only 10 years old. He is a boy, and you are a queen, and you have finally, after all these years of struggle, secured your place on the throne. The coffin has done its work, the legend has done its work, and you, the Serpent Queen, are now ready to rule. Your son, Francis II, is dead, and you, Catherine, are a Queen Mother, the effective ruler of France. Your youngest son, Charles IX, is but a boy of 10, too young to rule, and you are his regent. The Guise family, stripped of their puppet king, are reeling. For the first time in over a decade, you are at the helm of the ship of state, and you have no intention of letting go. Your reign is a period of intense political manoeuvring, and your nightly ritual in the coffin has become a secret source of power, a bizarre act of self-preservation that has now bled into your public persona. Your alchemist, Cosimo Ruggieri, is now your most trusted confidant. He is no longer just a purveyor of strange potions. He is your court astrologer, your political advisor, your dark shadow. You consult with him on everything, from the movements of the stars to the movements of your enemies. He is a man who deals in secrets, and you, the Serpent Queen, are a woman who has a need for them. He provides you with strange and powerful poisons, not for murder, but for protection. He teaches you how to read the stars, how to see the future, how to anticipate your enemy's moves. He's a man who is both a genius and a charlatan, and you, in your pragmatic wisdom, know the difference. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the blurring of lines between science and magic in your time. Cosimo Ruggieri was a real person, a Florentine astrologer and alchemist, who was a powerful figure at your court. He was your trusted advisor, and he was consulted on everything from the timing of important political events to the health of the royal family. He was a product of the Renaissance, a time when the belief in the power of astrology and the occult was widespread, even among the most educated people. Your reliance on him was a sign of your pragmatic approach to power, a willingness to use any tool at your disposal to secure your reign. The legend of the coffin, which was once a source of rumours and whispers, is now a part of your public image. The court, which once mocked you, now fears you. They whisper about your unearthly vitality, about your ageless beauty, about your supernatural power. You're not a woman who has a secret. You are a woman who is a secret. You use this to your advantage. You become more distant, more mysterious, more unnerving. You preside over the court with a cool, detached air. You no longer engage in the petty gossip and the small rivalries of the nobility. You are a step above them, a woman who is not just a ruler, but a force of nature. Here's a quirky tidbit about your personal style. You were a patron of the arts, but you were also a trendsetter. You had a passion for a new kind of shoe, a high-heeled shoe that was meant to give you more height and a more imposing presence. You were not a tall woman, and you knew that height was a symbol of power in your time. The heels were a new invention, a strange and exotic accessory, and they became a part of your public image. You, the woman who was once a ghost in the court, were now a living legend, a woman who had a secret to her terrifying power, a woman who wore shoes that made her taller than everyone else. It's a small detail, but it speaks to your understanding of the power of image and a willingness to use any tool, no matter how bizarre, to secure your reign. Historians still argue whether your use of Ruggieri and the legend of the coffin was a sign of a genuine belief in the occult or a clever political strategy. Some scholars argue that you, a woman who had endured so much, genuinely believed that you had found a way to defy death and to secure your reign. They point to the fact that you continued to consult with him for years, even after he was a source of controversy. Other scholars argue that you were simply a master manipulator who used the rumours of your dark arts to your advantage. You knew that fear was a more powerful tool than love, and you used the legend of the coffin to terrify your enemies into submission. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both. Your reign as Queen Mother is a period of intense political and religious conflict. You're a Catholic, but you're also a pragmatist. You know that a war between the Catholic and Protestant factions would tear France apart. You try to find a middle ground, a way to secure a lasting peace. You issue edicts of tolerance. You hold conferences and debates. You are a woman who is trying to find a way to rule in a world that is on the brink of a religious civil war. The legend of the coffin, which has been growing with each passing day, becomes a new weapon in this war. The Catholic fanatics, unable to defeat you in open court, use the legend to their advantage. They whisper that you are a heretic, a woman who has made a pact with the devil, a woman who has no respect for the true faith. They claim that your attempts at tolerance are not a sign of your wisdom, but of your malevolent nature. The rumours are vicious and relentless, but you, the Serpent Queen, do not respond. you simply continue to rule. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength. You're not a woman who is a victim. You are a woman who is a force of nature. Your son, Charles IX, is now king, but he is a boy, and you are his regent. He is a weak and indecisive boy, and you are the one who is making the decisions. You are a woman who has been a pawn, a possession, and a ghost, and you are now the most powerful person in France. You are a woman who has a secret to her terrifying power, and you use that secret to your advantage. You're not just a ruler, you're a living legend. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength. You're the Queen Mother, a woman who has defied nature, death, and your political rivals. You have secured your place on the throne, but your victory has come at a cost. The bizarre ritual of sleeping in a coffin, the nightly application of Ruggieri's strange unguents, the ingestion of his esoteric potions, it is all beginning to take its toll. The newfound vitality you once felt is now a constant low-level thrum of anxiety. The ageless beauty, which was once a source of power, is now a source of constant pain. Your skin, which was once so smooth, is now a tight, fragile mask. You feel a constant itching sensation, a sense of your flesh being stretched and pulled in unnatural ways. Your eyes, which once had a youthful sparkle, are now a bit bloodshot, with a slight persistent twitch. You are a woman who has a secret, and that secret is slowly and systematically destroying you. The price of your cursed beauty is not just a few wrinkles, it is your health, both mental and physical. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the danger of unregulated beauty products in the 16th century. Many of the ingredients used in cosmetics and remedies of the time were incredibly toxic, including lead, mercury, and arsenic. These substances were known to cause a wide range of health problems, from skin discoloration and hair loss to neurological damage and death. It is entirely plausible that the potions and unguents that Ruggieri was providing you with were filled with these very ingredients, and that the strange symptoms you were experiencing were a result of a slow, but sure, poisoning. You're not a woman who is a victim of a dark curse. You're a woman who is a victim of a very real and very dangerous medical reality. Your mind, which was once so sharp and pragmatic, is now a constant source of anxiety. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is a constant low-level hum of paranoia. You're afraid that your enemies will discover your ritual. You're afraid that they will discover your secret. You're afraid that your power, which is based on the illusion of your ageless beauty, will be exposed as a fraud. You're a woman who has a new kind of rival, and that rival is your own mind. The stress of your constant vigilance is a constant gnawing ache. Here's a quirky tidbit about some of the more bizarre ingredients used in alchemical remedies. It was a common belief that the more exotic and expensive the ingredient, the more potent the remedy. Alchemists would often use rare and strange substances, from ground-up mummy powder to the powdered horn of a unicorn, which was almost always a narwhal tusk, to create their elixirs. The belief was that the magic was in the rarity, and that the rarer the ingredient, the more powerful the result. The substances that Ruggieri provides you with are in the same vein. They are not just herbs and minerals, they are a bizarre alchemical concoction designed to defy nature itself. The cost of these ingredients, both in money and in your health, is a price you're willing to pay for the illusion of control. Historians still argue whether your mental and physical decline in your later years was a result of your bizarre health regimen or a result of the immense stress of your position. Some scholars argue that the poisons in Ruggieri's potions were the direct cause of your ailments. They point to the fact that you suffered from a number of strange and debilitating illnesses in your later years, from chronic pain to what seems to be a form of dementia. Other scholars argue that the political and religious chaos of the time, the constant threat of civil war, and the death of your children were enough to cause a complete physical and mental breakdown. They argue that you were a woman who was under a constant immense amount of stress, and that your body and mind simply gave out. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both. You are a woman who is at the height of her power, but you're also a woman who is slowly losing her mind. You become more and more paranoid, more and more isolated. You trust no one, not even your own children. You are a woman who is surrounded by a court of thousands of people, and yet you are utterly and completely alone. The Coffin, which was once a source of power, is now a source of profound loneliness. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is slowly and systematically destroying you. The political situation in France is a fire that you are more than ready to fight. You are a queen mother, but you are also a woman who has a new kind of rival, a rival that is more powerful than any political faction. The Catholic fanatics are determined to stamp out the Protestant Reformation with an iron fist, and you are a woman who is trying to find a middle ground. You are a woman who is trying to prevent a civil war, but you're also a woman who is slowly losing her mind. The stress of your constant vigilance is a constant gnawing ache. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength, but it is also your weakness. You're a queen, and you are a living legend, but you're also a woman who is on the brink of a complete physical and mental collapse. Your health, both physical and mental, is in a state of slow but undeniable decline. The constant use of Ruggieri's strange, unproven elixirs and the psychological toll of your bizarre nightly ritual are taking their toll. You are a woman who has defied nature, and nature is beginning to collect its debt. But in a twisted, almost macabre sense, the cost is a proof of your power. The court sees your physical decline, yes, but they also see the sheer, unshakable force of your will. They see a woman who has endured more than any other ruler, a woman who is still standing, still in power, still in control. Your obsession with your physical appearance, which was once a source of humiliation, is now a source of power. You're a living paradox, a woman who is both aging and ageless, a woman who's both beautiful and monstrous. The rumours of your dark arts have not stopped. They have only grown more intense, more vivid, more terrifying. They say that you have made a pact with the devil, that you have traded your soul for eternal youth. They say that the Coffin is not just a place of rest, but a portal to another world, a world where you commune with the spirits of the dead. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the sheer power of public image in the 16th century. Your enemies use the rumours of your sorcery and your bizarre rituals to turn the people against you, to paint you as a monster, but you, in your cunning, used those very same rumours to your advantage. You allowed the people to believe that you had a secret, a source of power that they could not understand. You were not a woman who was a victim of a dark curse. You were a woman who was a living, breathing testament to the power of a twisted and terrifying legend. The court, which was once a place of gossip and intrigue, is now a place of silent, watchful fear. The nobles who once looked at you with pity now look at you with a mix of awe and terror. They are afraid of you. They are afraid of the woman who has defied death, the woman who has a secret that no one can understand. You use this fear to your advantage. You become more distant, more mysterious, more unnerving. You preside over the court with a cool, detached air. You no longer engage in the petty gossip and the small rivalries of the nobility. You are a step above them, a woman who is not just a ruler, but a force of nature. Here's a quirky tidbit about some of the more bizarre ingredients used in alchemical remedies. It was a common belief that the more exotic and expensive the ingredient, the more potent the remedy. Alchemists would often use rare and strange substances, from ground-up mummy powder to the powdered horn of a unicorn, which was almost always a narwhal tusk, to create their elixirs. The belief was that the magic was in the rarity, and that the rarer the ingredient, the more powerful the result. The substances that Ruggieri provides you with are in the same vein. They are not just herbs and minerals, they are a bizarre alchemical concoction designed to defy nature itself. The cost of these ingredients, both in money and in your health, is a price you are willing to pay for the illusion of control. Historians still argue whether your physical and mental decline was a sign of a genuine poisoning or a result of the immense stress of your position. Some scholars argue that the poisons in Ruggieri's potions were the direct cause of your ailments. They point to the fact that you suffered from a number of strange and debilitating illnesses in your later years, from chronic pain to what seems to be a form of dementia. Other scholars argue that the political and religious chaos of the time, the constant threat of civil war, and the death of your children were enough to cause a complete physical and mental breakdown. They argue that you were a woman who was under a constant immense amount of stress, and that your body and mind simply gave out. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both. You're a woman who is at the height of her power, but you're also a woman who is slowly losing her mind. You become more and more paranoid, more and more isolated. You trust no one, not even your own children. You're a woman who is surrounded by a court of thousands of people, and yet you are utterly and completely alone. The Coffin, which was once a source of power, is now a source of profound loneliness. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is slowly and systematically destroying you. The political situation in France is a fire that you're more than ready to fight. You're a queen mother, but you're also a woman who has a new kind of rival. A rival that is more powerful than any political faction. The Catholic fanatics are determined to stamp out the Protestant Reformation with an iron fist, and you are a woman who is trying to find a middle ground. You are a woman who is trying to prevent a civil war, but you're also a woman who is slowly losing her mind. The stress of your constant vigilance is a constant gnawing ache. You are a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength, but it is also your weakness. You are a queen, and you are a living legend, but you're also a woman who's on the brink of a complete physical and mental collapse. You are a force of nature. Your political power, which was once so precarious, is now unassailable. You have outlived your husband and 2 of your sons, and you are the undisputed ruler of France. The legend of the Coffin, which was once a source of rumours and whispers, has now become a central part of your public persona. You're no longer just a ruler, you are a living, breathing myth. A woman who has defied death, and who holds a secret to her terrifying power. The people who once feared you now revere you. They see you as a symbol of strength and resilience, a woman who has endured the most unimaginable hardships and has come out stronger. Your political rivals, who once used the rumours of your sorcery to their advantage, are now a bit more cautious. They know that you are not a woman to be trifled with. They know that you have a secret, and they are afraid of it. You use this fear to your advantage. You become more distant, more mysterious, more unnerving. You preside over the court with a cool, detached air. You no longer engage in the petty gossip and the small rivalries of the nobility. You are a step above them, a woman who is not just a ruler, but a force of nature. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the sheer power of your political genius. You were a master of political manoeuvring, a woman who knew how to play her enemies against each other, how to forge new alliances, and how to maintain her power in a time of profound religious and political chaos. You were a Catholic, but you were also a pragmatist. You knew that a war between the Catholic and Protestant factions would tear France apart. You tried to find a middle ground, a way to secure a lasting peace. You issued edicts of tolerance. You held conferences and debates. You were a woman who was trying to find a way to rule in a world that was on the brink of a religious civil war. The legend of the Coffin, which has been growing with each passing day, has now become a new weapon in this war. The Catholic fanatics who were once so powerful are now a bit more hesitant. They know that you are not a woman who is afraid of them. They know that you have a secret, and they are afraid of it. They no longer whisper about your sorcery. They whisper about your power. They say that you have made a pact with God, not the devil. They say that the Coffin is not just a place of rest, but a place of prayer, a place where you commune with the spirits of the dead, a place where you receive your divine guidance. The legend has been twisted, but it has not been forgotten. It is a part of your legacy, a testament to your terrifying power. Here's a quirky tidbit that adds to the bizarre reality of your situation. You were obsessed with omens and prophecies, and you would often consult with Ruggieri on the movements of the stars. You believed that the stars could predict the future, and you used this belief to your advantage. You would often make a public show of your consultations, a way to let your enemies know that you were a woman who had a secret, a source of power that they could not understand. You were a woman who was both a pragmatist and a true believer, a woman who was trying to find a way to rule in a world that was a mix of science and superstition. Historians still argue whether your belief in the occult was genuine, or if it was a clever political strategy. Some scholars argue that you, a woman who had endured so much, genuinely believed that you had found a way to defy death and to secure your reign. They point to the fact that you continued to consult with Ruggieri for years, even after he was a source of controversy. Other scholars argue that you were simply a master manipulator who used the rumours of your dark arts to your advantage. You knew that fear was a more powerful tool than love, and you used the legend of the Coffin to terrify your enemies into submission. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both. You are a woman who is at the height of her power, but you are also a woman who is slowly losing her mind. You become more and more paranoid, more and more isolated. You trust no one, not even your own children. You're a woman who is surrounded by a court of thousands of people, and yet you are utterly and completely alone. The Coffin, which was once a source of power, is now a source of profound loneliness. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is slowly and systematically destroying you. The political situation in France is a fire that you are more than ready to fight. You are a queen mother, but you're also a woman who has a new kind of rival, a rival that is more powerful than any political faction. The Catholic fanatics are determined to stamp out the Protestant Reformation with an iron fist, and you are a woman who is trying to find a middle ground. You're a woman who is trying to prevent a civil war, but you're also a woman who is slowly losing her mind. The stress of your constant vigilance is a constant gnawing ache. You're a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength, but it is also your weakness. You are a queen, and you're a living legend, but you are also a woman who is on the brink of a complete physical and mental collapse. You are old now. The years of political manoeuvring, the deaths of your children, the constant paranoia, it has all taken its toll. Your physical appearance, which was once a source of pride, is now a source of profound pain. The poisons in Ruggieri's potions have done their work, and your body is a roadmap of their destruction. Your skin is sallow, your hands tremble, and your mind, which was once so sharp, is a constant source of confusion and terror. You are a queen, but you're also a living monument to the cost of accursed beauty. The coffin, which was once a source of power, is now a source of profound loneliness. You no longer sleep in it to preserve your youth. You sleep in it to escape the world. It is a place of cold, dark solitude, a place where you can finally be alone, away from the prying eyes of the court, away from the constant fear of betrayal, away from the ghost of your past. You are a woman who has a secret, and that secret has slowly and systematically destroyed you. Your final years are a study in contrasts. You are at the height of your power, and yet you are a woman who is constantly besieged by illness and a profound sense of isolation. You are the mother of 3 kings, and yet you are a woman who has been a ghost to your own children. You are a woman who has a secret, and that secret has slowly and systematically destroyed you. The whispers of your sorcery, which were once a source of terror, are now a source of pity. The people no longer fear you. They pity you. They see you as a broken woman, a queen who has lost her mind. This is a mainstream historical fact that highlights the tragedy of your final years. You were a woman who was at the height of her power, and yet you were a woman who was constantly besieged by illness and a profound sense of isolation. You were the mother of 3 kings, and yet you were a woman who was a ghost to your own children. The political and religious chaos of the time, the constant threat of civil war, and the death of your children were enough to cause a complete physical and mental breakdown. You are a woman who was under a constant, immense amount of stress, and your body and mind simply gave out. You're not a woman who is a victim of a dark curse. You're a woman who's a victim of a very real and very dangerous medical reality. Your youngest son, Henri III, is now king, and he is a man who is as weak and as indecisive as his brothers. He's a man who is terrified of you, of your power, of your legacy. He's a man who is a puppet in your hands, and you, the puppeteer, are a woman who is slowly losing her mind. You are a woman who has a secret, and that secret is your strength, but it is also your weakness. You're a queen, and you're a living legend, but you're also a woman who is on the brink of a complete physical and mental collapse. Here's a quirky tidbit about your funeral. Your death, in January of 1589, was not mourned by the people. The people who had once feared you now saw you as a monster, a woman who had a secret to her terrifying power. They saw you as a woman who had used black magic to secure her reign. They saw you as a woman who had caused the deaths of her children, the political chaos, the religious wars. They saw you as a monster, and they were glad to see you go. Your body was laid to rest in a simple, unadorned coffin, a final, ironic testament to the legend of the woman who slept in a coffin. Historians still argue about the true nature of your legacy. Some scholars argue that you were a ruthless and cruel woman who would stop at nothing to secure her power. They point to your use of assassination, your role in the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, and your relentless pursuit of power. Other scholars argue that you were a pragmatic and intelligent woman who was simply a product of her time. They point to your attempts at tolerance, your patronage of the arts, and your role as a mother who was trying to secure the future of her children. The truth, as always, is probably a combination of both. You die in your bed, a cold, hard woman who is utterly alone. The final breath is a gasp of pain, and a moment later, a gasp of relief. The court, which once feared you, is now relieved. They see you as a monster, A woman who has a secret to her terrifying power, and they are glad to see you go. The people who once pitied you now see you as a woman who has finally received her just deserts. You are a queen, and you are a living legend. But you are also a woman who is on the brink of a complete physical and mental collapse. And so, the story ends. The woman who slept in a coffin to stay beautiful is no longer a living legend. She is a historical figure, a woman who is a testament to the cost of accursed beauty, the price of a twisted victory, the ultimate irony of a queen who wanted to live forever, but who was ultimately destroyed by her own secret. The legend of the coffin, which was once a source of terror, is now a source of profound sadness, a testament to the tragedy of a woman who was both a monster and a victim, a queen who was both a genius and a fool, a woman who was both a hero and a villain. And as the story fades into the quiet whispers of history, we are left with a single haunting image. A queen, alone in the dark, in a cold wooden box. Her quest for eternal beauty, for unassailable power, was a lonely one, a journey that led her to the very edge of sanity. But in that darkness, in that profound solitude, she found a kind of peace, a quiet acceptance of the fact that all things, even the most beautiful and the most powerful, must one day come to an end. It is a lesson that echoes through the centuries, a quiet reminder that the greatest beauty is not found in a potion or a ritual, but in the simple, fragile grace of a life lived and a life loved. Now, as the last of the embers fade in the hearth, let the silence settle over you, a soft blanket of calm. The world of princes and queens, of potions and poisons, can wait until morning. For now, let the darkness be a comfort, and the stillness a friend. Let the ghosts of history rest, and let your own mind find its way to a peaceful and quiet sleep.